FintechTalk, the live webinar with no presentations, no PowerPoint, just talk.
Host Charles Orton-Jones. This is the podcast that goes deeper into industry issues than anywhere else. And today we're discussing how to deliver a personalized customer experience. We have gathered a pair of experts from around the world. And so without further ado, let's meet our first guest, Peter McLean, who is Global Customer Experience Strategist at HSBC. Peter, if you'd like to say hello and turn on your camera. Perfect. Peter, so good to have you with us. Perhaps you could just tell us very briefly about your role at HSBC.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, pleasure to be invited to participate in the conversation today. Subject to feel really passionate about. So as Charles referenced, I'm Pete McLean, worked in financial services for approximately 15 years. Variety of roles, but a central theme of protecting our customers and capturing their needs alongside an ambition to deliver world-class products and services. Currently, I'm at HSBC, role as a global customer strategist, and that sits within our global customer experience function.
Fantastic. And joining us, Simon Burt, who is head of digital customer experience and innovation at Newcastle Permanent Building Society, which is HQ'd in Newcastle, New South Wales, Australia. Simon, what a pleasure to see you. Perhaps you could just tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and your role.
Well, I think, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Fantastic.
Talk about landing right at the last minute there, with a few connection problems. Thank you. It's late in the evening here in Australia. I actually organisationally, we've just gone through a merger, so we've merged with another bank in Australia. So we're now called NGM Group. So we've got the Newcastle Permanent brand as well as a Greater Bank brand in Australia. Two of the largest mutual or customer-owned banks in Australia who have come together only in the last month or so. So that's all very interesting. Digital is a key piece of what we do, and will be a critical piece to continue to grow those brands and doing different things with those brands in the future. I'm also heavily involved in the fintech community locally. We sponsor a number of the fintech organizations and so on, and it's a great way to access and to get to know what's happening in the industry and to explore partnerships, etc., in that space. And I'm sure there'll be many more of them in the future.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think today's subject is such a popular one. It's talked about a lot. And perhaps we could just put up the first news story, because this just underlines really, this is taking a generational look at things, saying that Gen Z needs greater attention, greater personalization, better customer experiences to be attracted by banks. But my suspicion is that everyone prefers a more personalized, more bespoke service, more tailored to them. Peter, what do you think? Is this the new default, personalized banking?
It's an interesting question, and as you say, it's popular, very topical. I think for me, it's all around experience, and I think when we talk about personalization, I think we need to recognise some of the limitations that we have. It's maybe not just enough to say, welcome Charles when you log into your app. It's going a little bit deeper than that, and actually trying to make sure that we're adding in personalization when it's most impactful. So if you want to do something quite seamless and quite straightforward, then treat me like you know me, but don't necessarily overcomplicate things. For me, there's a balance to be had there.
Don't overcomplicate things. Interesting. And Simon, what do you think? Is the dream goal a really personalized, bespoke experience for every customer, or is that a little bit too finicky and maybe possibly intrusive? Organizations that know everything about you can be a little peculiar. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think we've always been known for, in the market, pre-digital, having a really personalized experience delivered through people. So our teams really create that personalized and welcome feeling. They know enough about you, you know, and they make you feel like you're part of something when you talk to them. And what we've always seen as our challenge is how do we recreate that digitally so that same feeling comes through digitally. So to me, it's about, there's an experience part of that. So someone that knows enough about me, and that we're digitally we're quite approachable and easy to use for starters, so that we don't try and overcomplicate things. We don't try and overwhelm people with functionality. We try and deliver digital functionality that customers actually need. And then from there, what we're trying to do is focus on personalization in a way that delivers the information to customers that they need. So that could be, I think we talked about, the welcome message. It goes well beyond that, but maybe notifying a customer when there's an event happening that they need to know about. One of the big focus areas at the moment is in that. It's probably more unique to Australia than anywhere, given the number of data breaches and so on we've had in the market, where security is a big concern for people. And so the concept of personalization is shifting from tell me what I've done with my money to is my money safe. Am I going to get caught by a scam? Can you help me out? Do you know what's going on? Is this, tell me when someone else is trying to log on. So it's a really, so the concept of personalization has shifted a little bit for us. It'll come back, but personalization is absolutely, something we're striving for, but maybe in a different way.
There's some good nuances. Perhaps Simon, you could tell us where you think customers really value personalization. We talk about notifying events, maybe that are relevant to them. I mean, there could be special offers, but where do you think customers really notice that a bank has gone the extra mile to pay attention to who they are?
I think it's unique to each customer. In a home loan sense, for example, tell me when I need to do something. Tell me how my home loan's going. I've entered into an experience with you. Tell me what stage is that up to as I apply for that home loan. And then what do I need to do next? It's funded or it's about to fund. Do I need to, I need money in that account? When do I need to set a repayment? How much do I need to set that repayment for? Can I pay extra and so on? And when is something changing? So in a home loan sense, and that's, 98% of our business, one of the things we want to do is be really good in that sense, so that home loan customer really feels like we're connecting with them. Generally, the experience, certainly in Australia anyway, is probably not that. The customer has to do a fair bit of work to actually, get set up and or make changes along the way. If you've got a fixed rate home loan, indicate when that's coming up, as opposed to just sending me a letter, and personalize that offer in terms of next best, the best offer at the time, or multiple offers, etc. Don't let me go and phone back up. Let me make that easy for me.
Fantastic. And Peter, at HSBC, do you have a vision of exactly how you would like to treat customers in terms of personalization, or are you still exploring this issue and experimenting?
I think we're continually experimenting. We have our customer experience principles. We have visions of where we want to go to. But I think to Simon's point, I mean, personalization, to be truly personalized, it's unique to the individual. So, what I might like to see when I'm either kind of, on the phone, in branch, on my app, could be quite different. So I think being able to get to a position where we can use data to drive some of those decision making, so we understand what do you log in for most frequently, what are kind of those kind of premium journeys to you, and delivering them to a more exceptional and exemplar level is really key. But I think also being able to add in having a kind of a widget based approach and be quite customized with the personalization could be key, because life changes and events change, and how you interact with your bank will change over time too.
Are you genuinely personalized, or do you still just deal with market segmentation? So you say, well, I don't know, this is someone in their 20s, or this is someone at university, and therefore we put into this category? Or have you really got to the stage, HSBC got to the stage where each person is their own category?
It's not not an individual basis. We still have, so we're trying to kind of, I guess, deep dive into some of those, personas and customer types and demographics. And I think we need to be quite careful with some of that, because whilst they're a good way of prioritizing and trying to get, a deeper analysis, it's not a perfect model. So, there's a commercial balance that we need to strike, and going for, priority areas. We're not, I would say we're not where we want to be with it.
I'm interested in that because, Facebook became obsessed by personalized ads and began to creep people out because it knew exactly what you'd been looking at. It wanted to monetize every click, every like, everything you'd ever subscribed to. And that was their philosophy. And people began to feel it was intrusive, and maybe user trust in Facebook began to erode. And I wonder, Peter, whether you think that's a case, whether you can somehow display too much knowledge of a consumer and that trust gets eroded.
Absolutely. I think we've learned a lot around, from digital adoption, and I think even now the use of biometric trust is key. It's one of, while we want to be inclusive, and I think building that trust is quite difficult, but probably losing that trust is quite easy. And I found it quite interesting, Simon's point around, like notifications, for example, and how we make customers aware of certain things. We can overdo that. We can tell you, every time you buy a coffee, and maybe some individuals would like to see that. But how do we make sure that the most impactful messages land? So if we want to tell you there's a potential fraud case here, we need you to notice that. And if it gets sort of lost in the noise, that will become more difficult. So I think the kind of big brother idea and overstepping the mark is really important. So making sure we've got a right to play in the space and being personalized when we can be the most impactful, I think is what's key.
Interesting. Simon, I mean, you just mentioned earlier that you're trying to create maybe some of the sensation that people used to have when they came into a branch and got to know their, UK we think of as bank managers or building society managers. And then it was really possible to have a one-to-one relationship with someone. You might know your bank manager and play golf with him. That era kind of has disappeared. Now, in the digital realm, are we mimicking that? Can we ever really have a genuinely personal relationship with a customer in an age where it's really just data analytics? Or is this a different era?
Yeah, look, I think it's different. I mean, we've done a number of things in that space to kind of take some of our people, less and less people are coming into branches and so on. But what we've done is, a lot of those branches are still there and those people are still there. And what we've done is actually transformed the roles of some of those people so that they're actually doing what we call virtual work now. So, rather than physical, as in face-to-face, they'll also support people virtually. So, providing access to those same type of people, those same, exact same people in some cases. We've got a bit of AI in there to help them, actually find the right person that needs them, and even that person in that branch that they like, regardless of where they are. But that still really comes down to a conversation, whether that's verbal or or typed. It's still getting back to that. So I think as soon as you step away from that person-to-person experience, I think it's different. But I think if you go back to that article that we commenced with. I'm not convinced that. I mean, I have Gen Z kids. They're much later in Gen Z, but they don't want to talk to people. They don't want to. They don't want that same experience. They want to be able to navigate that themselves. The best they'll probably do is type on web chat, but even that in protest almost. So I think. I think that the personal experience for Gen Z and for younger people, and that's really where we all need to grow as more people come into the market. I think that concept of personalization is just different. They don't want that bank manager experience. They're not used to it. They don't understand it. They're looking for the Facebook experience where you don't talk to anybody. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you mentioned AI, and I wonder if I could throw that hand grenade in there, because we're all still dealing with the fallout of this just incredible leap. I'm going to say month by month, almost week by week, explosion in applications of AI. And I wonder, just how you're using AI and whether you feel that's going to be a game changer in personalization, because the AI can access vast amounts of records, and it can talk to customers the way a human could. I mean, Simon, how are you using AI, and how would you like to use AI?
Yeah, it's interesting. I often mention this. I shouldn't have mentioned it, right? Now I have to answer a question on it. But
it's so difficult. I know it's a horrible subject because it's moving so fast.
Yeah, but look, what I often say in this space is we didn't set out to use AI. We set out to solve a problem, and it turned out that AI helped us, and was a great option. And really, where that comes in is in that we use it essentially to answer. We use a voice bot to answer the phone, answer all our calls. And what that bot's doing is actually part of that experience is routing the customer based on what they say that they want to do. We ask them, how can we help them today? And they tell us a story. And we're trying to get the customer to stretch that story out. And the bot's always listening to that, and it's allocating and say, right, you need to talk to, I see you want to talk to that person in that particular branch or about that topic or that specialist. And where the AI starts to become really powerful is where you can see it learning and listening and saying, we started with, for example, saying the customer says, I want an account balance. And we programmed to know, it knew exactly what to do with that. But if someone says, I want to know how much money I have, it didn't know what to do with that. But by listening to the call, it could actually say, oh, that's the same as account balance. So I'll make when the customer says all of those things, I'm going to send that down that same path. And it does all of that automatically. And, it's just that continual learning, and the power of that is really impressive. It's, we couldn't do any of that on our own. We'd still be dumping everyone down a general inquiries queue. But that's all working for chat, etc. as well. So any of our typed interactions run off the same model.
Fantastic. So AI fine tuning, I think that's called. Also, machine learning. Peter, I wonder what your perspective is on this, because the potential for AI is huge, but the potential for catastrophe is also huge. There's this great phenomenon of hallucitations. If you ask ChatGPT to, write an article on medicine, it can just make up papers willy-nilly and or just slip them in there very subtly. So what's your view? I mean, maybe the potential for AI is there, but it's incredibly hard to handle and discipline, especially when it's a black box system. No one quite understands its inner workings.
Yeah, so I mean, it's hugely complex, really interesting. I think it's been particularly topical in the news, and I know after a while I really enjoy kind of looking around, and I've had a play with ChatGPT, and it's the potential's immense. For me, it's still around that balance of the human touch, the use of AI, and complementing the use of assistive tech. As Simon mentioned, there's definitely now a demand for self-serve. So there's certainly an area where we don't want to speak to a human, we don't need to. But how we can, I think context is key. So how we can leverage AI and tech is going to be vital. And we're already doing that in lots of the same ways. I think there's some interesting ways that we're looking to prevent fraud through using machine learning. What I think is clear as it gets kind of, as we go down this path, is just to have some really clear strategy and a clear principles in place. It comes on to what we talked about moments earlier around trust and kind of the right to play in this space, of making sure customers are aware of where their data might be used. But ultimately, movement and there's attitudes are emerging. It's happening at pace with AI. So we need to ensure that we're building environments where we can test and learn. And again, so we can bring it to life for customers where it's impacting them in the most positive way.
Without getting too technical, HSBC is such a complicated organization. I think you guys run something like 50 cores, up to 7,000 applications. Do you find you're able to implement, the technology you want to? Or is there, a sort of, an expense lag, a time lag that means that HSBC would struggle to move as fast as, some of the more nimble neobanks, without being insulting to HSBC, just a very complicated global organization. So can you move as fast as you want to?
I think HSBC, like, a lot of the incumbent banks, that's always going to be something that they need to work on and improve. It's one of the challenges that are out there. And I think fintechs have really kind of turn the dial in that respect. So, move quickly as we'd like to, probably not. And certainly the global, the legislation that exists to build journeys and features that are seen across borders, it's a major challenge for us. That's the market we operate in. So yeah, certainly a challenge for us.
Okay, what about you guys where your inspiration comes from? Because we keep hearing that customers compare all of their providers across categories. And so they'll compare, I don't know, Uber to Netflix to Spotify to their bank, to the government, online tax service and that kind of thing. When you're looking for inspiration, Simon, is there an industry you look to? Is there a company you think, this does personalization really well?
That's a really good question. I think for inspiration, one of the things that we are focused on, this isn't a very deep answer, but one of the things we're really focused on is making sure that from a digital perspective, our digital experience is, in Australia at least, it's very common that people will use multiple banks. They're multi-banked. It's almost, everybody's and many times over. So generally, people are using the app. Certainly younger people, but many others are using the app for each of those banks. And, I think our inspiration is trying to get the one that actually stands out and lands it in the right place and that feels like us. We've done a lot of work to make sure we actually launched a new app. It was 2 years ago now, but we did a lot of work on the design there. We've actually won a number of both national and international design awards for the simplicity of that experience. And so, one of the things, that we focused on as part of that design is making sure that the navigation and experience was quite familiar, and that was familiar to, we didn't replicate any of these sites in any way, but some of the experience isn't dissimilar to what people spend most of their time on, in terms of the sort of navigation experience. Think social media and so on. But beyond that, I wouldn't say we necessarily have any inspiration in terms of personalization yet. I see a lot of the bigger banks in Australia probably overdoing it, or heading down that path fairly quickly, especially when you're really trying to use data, for example, to sell someone something. That's not what a customer is looking for. They're looking to tell you what, something important to them, based on that data, not what they might need next. So, we're definitely trying to avoid that. Maybe that's, the reverse of inspiration.
Okay. Well, just perhaps touching on the theme of AI, we do have a question from our viewer, Jessica Marshall. In fact, with Carl Soppel, another viewer, asked a very similar question, so perhaps be a good one to put to you. The question from Jessica is, what steps can traditional financial institutions take to ensure that AI and human interactions complement each other effectively, providing a seamless and satisfying customer experience? Are there any specific strategies or best practices that can help find this equilibrium? Peter, what do you think?
Yeah, so if I heard the question right, it's our understanding, it's complement. How do we use AI and technology? And I think it comes back to the point I made earlier around being very clear on when to use and when not to use. I think for me, a really simple way of looking at that is always that a potential fraud victim would benefit from being able to pick up the phone and that might not be the right time.
Oh. Do we still have Peter?
I was worried it was me.
No, I think Peter has entered the void temporarily. Simon, if we switch over to you.
Yeah.
How do you get this balance right between AI and the human touch?
Yeah, I think I've talked a little bit already about AI and how we are using it, and I think that's working really nicely. Where essentially we're using AI to machine learning to connect our customers with people, whether that's via a voice call or a chat session or anything else. But finding the right people, the right person, the right skill set, even the right location, even though the location is probably maybe not relevant, given they're connecting digitally. So I think that has worked really well to connect people together. I think the other example, and we heard the start of that, is in that fraud space, or customer protection space, where the machine learning is kicking in to actually alert to certain situations. And so you might be, in that case, you might be triggering to our fraud team, for example, to people to take a look at things and actually be alert to to threats, because it's evolving so quickly. Or potentially to alert the customer to, take a look at this. There's this, this thing has just happened. Check that was you, or you authorized it. So in that space, so I think it's almost at two ends of the spectrum. It's connecting someone up front and protecting them at the back. I think are two important ways. I think for us at least, it feels like a fair way off before we have AI directly answering questions. I think it might be really nice in that direct customer space, where we're helping an agent, and learning. It's listening to the customer call and actually helping the agent solve the problem.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm interested in that. I mean, how regulators cope with an AI industry that is changing week by week, but also a technology that's so difficult to predict how it's going to move, how it's going to react to things. Very interesting. We actually have another quite fun question, I think, which is from Carlos Texera. What are some common areas where traditional financial services and their systems may be failing to deliver a personalized customer experience? Whereas personalization not working. I also extend the question and say also, where do people get it wrong? Peter, what do you think? Where's personalization yet to intrude?
Yeah, I think really key for us is around the discoverability and the navigation of our products and services. So, there's so much out there. We've got such a busy delivery roadmap. We're always kind of launching, whether it's something that's new, shiny, deliverable, or optimize an existing journey. I think a number of our customers aren't necessarily aware of what we have available to them, and I think they also want to know when something's of more relevance. So I think for me, where personalization can help with that is, again, it's around knowing our customers better, knowing if they're single product, they only hold a credit card or a mortgage perhaps, or if their salary's paid in and they use our financial management tools. So for me, I think how we can link into making sure that we're sourcing the right products, the right services, even surfacing them to the customers when they need them. That's the key challenge for us, is how can we make them relevant and discoverable.
Okay, but I was asking with HSBC, to what degree you run little experiments on, I don't know, global subsections or a subsection of the population. I mean, in retail, this happens all the time. A/B testing, multivariate testing is really common. Not quite so easy in banking, but to what degree do you, have a theory and test it out on a subsection of your customer base, either geographically or within a geographic location?
Yeah, it's fundamental to our design thinking approach. And actually our research capabilities, I think, really matured from kind of A/B testing prototypes and concepts that are quite near to launch, to bringing that in at a much earlier stage, having customers, co-creation sessions and to bounce ideas around and try and have some, low fidelity prototypes to really work around. So that's a challenge we were actually, quite strong, quite mature in, and we can send those tests out to customers, and we work with partners on that in all different corners of the world. And it's fascinating how, designs and prototypes, the feedback varies so much based on the cultural nuances of the market.
And Simon, perhaps you could just take us backstage at your organization. To what degree do you run experiments not quite knowing what the outcome is going to be? It's going to be on personalization, or actually, pretty much anything. Retailers do it. Not so easy for banks and building societies, but what do you do?
Yeah, we're probably not overly mature at that. It's something we've just started to do. Being a merged entity now, we've got two brands, two different apps, and pretty much all the technology is separate. We've just started to say, actually, you can, you've got that ability in that brand, test that out. just run a test and see what, so it is early days for us. We've probably, just got that ability really, apart from that, we do a lot of work, directly, testing concepts with customers, but not really to the degree we would build a prototype. So, looking forward to the ability to do a lot more of that testing, in one brand versus the other, what might work in with a, different customer demographic, in a particular brand and so on. So, it's almost like a new toy that we'll get to play with. We're starting to get to play with.
I think this really marks fintech out from or banking from other industries, because in retail not only is there huge multivariate testing. I mean, Facebook famously tested 41 shades of blue before finding the very stickiest shade. There's also stuff like data augmentation. So companies will buy in location data, for example, when you want a personalized experience, they want to know exactly where you have been in the last year. And because people have apps on their mobile that are location trackers, retailers think nothing of doing that. Banks seem far more cautious. Peter, if you conduct these radical extra maybe data augmentation programs to try and get a better understanding of customers, or is that just a red line? I mean, buying location data, for example, of customers sounds like a big deal for a bank to do.
No, that's not something. I think for us, it's more around trying to create natural environments. Because I think that, for example, A/B testing, or if we're trying to get someone to give us feedback on a feature, sometimes I think we're introducing biases in terms of, we're inviting you to come and give your feedback on this product, and you're introducing a number of factors. One thing we're looking at is how we maybe move towards kind of diary studies, or when people are comfortable in their own environment, and actually some of the kind of Zoom testing has really helped with that, because we currently we had a studio in an office at one point, and immediately, you're walking into a HSBC room, and so lots of factors going in there. So how we can get a really authentic, and I'm really interested in the behavioural economics to get that granular detail, and I think being really open in our questions, making sure they're not leading questions, they're very much discovery questions, is how we need to source the most the most prominent bits of insights that we can take away, rather than, what do you prefer, A or B? Well, they might prefer C, and how do we surface C?
Yeah. Like it. So qualitative research, also known as actually talking to people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we do that too. It's not very specific, but it works.
Yeah, I mean, is that right, Simon? I mean, I'm very kind of, techie and always think about multivariate testing, that kind of thing. But in the end, you can actually learn quite a lot by actually just sitting down and talking to people. How does it work with your organization, Simon?
Yeah, well, we spend a lot of time watching people. We do sessions in our branches. Interestingly, we've got a lot of our, elderly people who we've, converted to digital. We've shown them the benefits, and that's been fascinating for our designers in particular to watch and learn those people using the system, using the app or internet banking, etc. Because they're not native like a younger person that's been born with a device in their hand. So if you can get it right for those people, it becomes very easy for everybody. And so we do a lot of sessions. We've been doing, I don't know, probably 50 sessions a year, directly with customers, probably 10, 20 customers at a time. It's all the branch can handle. But it's just invaluable to see that demographic using your systems, because if it's not logical, you'll find out very quickly. If it's not easy, you'll find out very quickly. And so I think, that's made us rethink design. It's made us, think differently about how we build the next thing, that next feature or piece of functionality.
That's a lot of sessions. I say you say it's an organization. No, that's a lot of sessions.
Yeah.
So you actually sit down and watch these people. Can you navigate our website? Can you navigate the app and actually watch them doing it? Physically watch them?
Yeah, it's a mobile app predominantly, but also a lot of them use their iPad with internet banking running. So we're essentially teaching them. It's a class. We call it a digital master class, and we they come in to learn and to learn how to make a payment and different things like that. but you know, we've got our designers in the room, we've got our fraud teams in the room. You know, we've got, you know, everyone's learning and watching these people, because, you know, the fraud team want to understand how they think and operate, you know, to help protect them as we do, you know, and just, you know, when you see them stall and say, I don't know what to do next, you know, it should be obvious enough. And so, you know, it's a great prompter.
Fantastic. And perhaps I could just ask, really, as we start to sort of to wrap up, to think about the dream scenario, whether you have in your head what you'd love to be, you know, the ideal bank. Peter, do you have this in your head? You know, what HSBC is going to be like, say, in 5 or 10 years' time? Is it going to be the case that we've achieved perfect personalization, that you're a bank that understands everyone's transactions, you have gathered as much data as is legally allowable, and in every communication, each person is their own segment? Is that desirable? Is it realistic? Is that something you think is the dream?
I think it's certainly the ambition. I think timescales are always difficult. I think being able to really understand our customers, I think we're really far down that road. I think for me, in terms of data, like, I mean, we have masses of data. Actually, how we use that data, how we complement it and supplement it with customer insights and market data to tell that compelling story is probably the more difficult part. I think for us as well, a real challenge as you know, our ambition to be the international bank of choice. How we make that personalization be sustained across borders is going to be a big challenge, and I think that's where again the data question comes into it. Of, you know, if I have a bank account here in the UK and I have a bank account in Australia, how am I being serviced and how am I being recognised as a customer? Those are going to be the real challenges for us. Not that it will be simple for a pure domestic bank, but I think that the global and the cross-border implications is where the challenge will really be, to make sure we're delivering that personalization. I always like to think of the customer continuum, so, and their kind of maturity through the life cycle. How can we be one step ahead, or how can we know that you're going to go through that mortgage or you're going to move overseas? I think those are the big challenges, and I think we're well on the way. But yeah, timescale wise, that's almost the impossible question, I think.
I would not. There's no spec. Yeah, I can't imagine saying anything intelligent on the timescale system. And Simon, what does a dream building society look like? Is every interaction personalized?
I think to a degree. I mean, I think if you know, again, I would avoid the time frame, but if I had a vision of where we want to land, it's you know, it's using the data that we have, you know, that data on a customer, you know, all of their transactions and products and you know, and potentially you know, the interactions and transactions, etc. they have at other banks, you know, and actually be able to interpret and understand where they are in their journey, in their financial journey, and be able to deliver either insights or suggestions on you know, next thing they should do. I see that differently to, you know, because I really think the market will evolve slightly differently in, you know, there's that real risk you can overcook it and just try and sell people something. And if you get it, you know, you know, this is about presenting the data back to the customer in a way that gives them an insight, or, you know, it's something meaningful back to me. It's their data, not ours. You know, we hold it, but it's their information. How do you make that and present that back in useful ways that help them on that journey? You know, and getting that right. You know, and to me, that's, you know, that's really where personalization plays a part. It's understanding where you are on that, you know, on that journey and delivering back at the right time.
Does it make a more profitable organization? I mean, the more you know about your customers, the more intelligent and accurate your decisions can be. So from your perspective, is this not just about making customers happy abstractly and giving them the products you want? It's about, you know, that de-risking. It's about accurately assessing everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about, you know, people are generally multi-banked, and that's not going to change. It's probably going to increase. So I think a big part of that is if they enjoy your experience, you'll more likely increase your share of wallet, increase in the amount of funds they have to invest, or you move a transactional customer into a home loan space or in a lending space where you're actually driving revenue from them, from that customer. So I think it is a profit driver essentially, because it's really building or solidifying those main financial institution type relationships, or MFI we tend to call it. I think it's really critical to success, because people are already touching all those other banks as well. They're experiencing others, and it's about them being the right bank for your customer demographic anyway, and winning more of their business.
And Peter, HSBC, what's the motivation? Is it just making customers happy is lovely, but is this fundamentally about profit?
I think it's about elevating experience. I think to Simon's point, personalization, it's not about doing it for the sake of it. It's being intuitive in the way it's delivered and really adding value. So I think if we can do that, and we can demonstrate to the customer, I guess, trust, and that we understand where they are in life, and do it in a way that our experiences are seamless, and rather than being difficult to find or anything like that, I think that's the motivation behind doing it.
Fantastic. And guys, just to wrap up the session, I always like to end by asking our guests for a fintech company they really admire and they think that our viewers and listeners should go out and check out, because they're, we're going to discover something fantastic. Simon, putting you on the spot here, is there a fintech company maybe in Australia that you think is doing something maybe in the field of personalization or something else, doing it really well, and you think our viewers should check out?
Look, there's lots, and I know a lot of people in this industry, so I'm about to get in trouble for not mentioning somebody, a lot of people. But a company where I've just been having a conversation with in the last couple of days, I'll mention only for that reason. But they have an interesting product in our market anyway. Open banking is still sort of early days for us, or real use cases of good use cases. A company called We Money in Australia, they've won a number of awards in the fintech space. They've got a relatively unique offer, and it may not seem unique in the UK market, but essentially they're just leveraging open banking to. They have a really good mobile banking app that customers, and it's really a Gen Z type focused market, and they just really leverage and consolidate all of a customer's bank accounts. But they have a model where they're actually selling other products and so on. So for us, it's an interesting way of actually distributing product, leveraging open banking. So it's unique in our market, and one we're having a conversation on just at the moment.
All right, that one's new to me, so thank you so much. And Peter, the question.
Yeah, so I mean, there are so many doing a great job, and I truly believe they had such a positive impact in pushing the incumbents and evolving the industry for the positive of the public, for customers. If I may, I'll call out two. So first is Wise, so previously TransferWise. The reason I mentioned them is that their cross-border money transfer is exemplary, and it's something I've studied quite closely at HSBC. It's a market we play strongly in. I think from price point to experience design to security, it's a great business. And the second is Monzo, so UK. I like a number of things about Monzo. I think that firstly, they were one of the original challengers, and they've held the test of time, which is no easy achievement. But what I've always admired most is the community that they've created and the benefits that brings not only to customers, but to commercial objectives. So it's a community like not many have achieved, but many have tried, where customers can answer each other's questions and solve problems, as well as helping to contribute ideas and pilot future features. So yeah, I've always been impressed by that.
Fantastic. Well, I love Monzo, and I'm talking to you from Tallinn, capital of Estonia. where the founders of Wise are from. People are very proud of Wise here. So it's lovely to hear them getting a plug from the mighty HSBC. Guys, thank you so much to our viewers. Next week, we are talking cyber, how to protect your legacy systems from cyber attacks with state actors on the rise. One country in particular, data is under threat. So we'll be dealing how to secure everything against cyber threats. So I hope you can join me at Tuesday at 4. And to Simon and Peter, it was such a pleasure having you on here and sharing your expertise. I'm hugely grateful. So thank you very much.